Hey guys, Lizardlea here for Christmas Ornaments 2021. I'm doing a sleigh, or bear in a sleigh. Yeah, it's really cute. I like it. So, I'm gonna work on it now. I still have to pick out all my colors, so it'll be a minute.
And we're back for more narration. So this next group, because I finished the previous group, this one, the big title is Good Random Questions to Ask People. So this one isn't specifically about a friend anymore. We'll see. 1. What do you think the meaning of life is? Honestly, I think it's just happiness. I think it's finding happiness, experiencing happiness, because anything else is just not as good. Like, okay, you could put love in there, but I would say, finding love is going to give you happiness, so I think it falls under that category. 2, if money were no object, what would you do? I mean, I would do this. I would cross-stitch the rest of my life. And I would be one of the happiest people in the world. I love cross-stitching so much. And I know I don't, have a huge impact with my channel, but I do still like sharing my love of cross-stitch with the world. There are people who I'm the first time they've heard of cross-stitching, and I think that's awesome. And I have so many friends and family members that find out I cross-stitch and they're just like, wait, what? Like they confuse it with needlepoint or crocheting even. And so, I get to tell them about it, and there are some people who have learned it. And, or they've found that, their grandma did it, and they had this cross-stitch that their grandma did, and now they understand how long it took her to work on that. And that makes me really happy that people get to experience this. Like every single time I go to a swap meet or anything like that, I'm always on the lookout for a framed cross-stitch, because it's so much fun to look at them and think and consider about how long it took the person to do this. There are some that are pretty small, so I'm like, okay, they probably finished that in a couple days. And there are others where I'm like, oh my goodness, like, this size, that had to have taken them years. It's insane. And then these people who are selling them, I'm assuming they don't have any sentimental value and that's why they're selling them, but they'll sell them for like $5. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like the frame itself alone is more than $5. But this piece of artwork inside of it is way, way more than that. If you consider that it took, 100 hours and they made $7 an hour, that's $700 right there of work put into that. Yeah, I know people don't pay cross-stitch by the hour, but like that's something to consider. Is like it took them a long time to work on this. It didn't happen in a couple hours. Like, yes, okay, this one happened in like 2 to 3 hours, but this isn't the kind of thing you're gonna see in a frame at a swap meet or a yard sale. I mean, you might actually see the ornament itself there, but yeah. I don't know how I got on that. I'm sorry. 3. If you found out you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do today? I mean, yeah, I'd call DJ and be like, hey, you know what? Let's play hooky, skip work. I think ultimately I'd end up telling people, like, hey, yeah, I think I'm going to die tomorrow. Whether they'd believe me or not, at least I'd get to say it. And if they believe that I believe it, they would make sure their last words are, I love you, or, something like they're not going to regret. Because I can't think of a time it ever happened to me, but I've seen movies and stuff where, people say things like, if you walk out of this house, you ain't welcome back. And then they find out their kid died, and it's like, wow, that's the last thing I told my kid, was that they weren't welcome back. And I don't want that kind of regret for myself, and I don't want that for someone else either. So I think I would, if I don't let people know, I'd at the very least end every conversation with, I love you, in the hopes that they'll say I love you too, so that they don't feel so guilty. Yeah. I hate those kinds of questions. It's so sad. 4. What is the most unexpected piece of advice you ever received? I know I've said this before. Mr. Martinez, my computer teacher in high school, when I was, after my first semester at college, I went back to Japan, and I saw him and I talked to him, and I told him that I was in art. I was an art major. And he was like, don't do what you love, because you'll start to hate it. Do what you like, and keep what you love as a hobby, because then you'll always be able to love it. Because when he was growing up, and he always loved cars, his first big job, like after school and whatnot, was at a car shop. And he would take his work home, and it made him miserable, and he didn't love it anymore. But he always liked teaching, so he went back and he did some teaching, and it was after a few years of teaching that he was finally able to pick up car parts again and start working on cars, and he re-found that love he had. I think this kind of harkens back to the previous question for me, where like, oh, if money wasn't an object, what would you do? I would do this, because I love it. And I can't see myself ever getting tired of it. I've been doing this for, 20 years now? That's how long I've been cross-stitching, and I love it. Like, yeah, there have been really long periods where I didn't get to cross-stitch because I was, in school and I didn't have time. I actually had friends, so I went outside instead. And I met DJ, and I was falling in love with TV shows and movies, and him, obviously. And I found it again, and then I fell back in love with it, and now I'm doing this again, and he supports me in that, and I appreciate that. But yeah, like, I love it. And the only kind of, like, burnout I get is honestly when I do projects like this, where it's for other people. When I'm working on a project for me, doesn't matter how long it's going to take me. I'm always excited to work on it. That's, the Pokemon cross-stitch, this 4 Heavenly Beasts. I love it, and I want to do it, and I want to do it for me. I ended up giving DJ Magnificent Wizard, but when I worked on it, I was working on it with the intention of keeping it for me. And I did a lot of patterns and projects for my family members, and I knew they would love it. So there was never any issue of like, oh, I'm not sure if they'll like it. I don't know if this will be appreciated. So I didn't have any burnout. Like Mother Moon, Father Son, I gave those to my mom and my dad. I never had any issues with burnout with those, because I love working on them. And I don't know. I'd love to just cross-stitch the rest of my life. Eventually I'll have to get laser eye surgery because I'm totally going to go blind, but okay, we're going to move on. 5. If you could ask your future self one question, what would it be? Is there any time between the beginning of 2022 and where you are now that you wish you had done or had not done? Like, what is your biggest regret that this present Liz could fix? Like, oh, you should have proposed to DJ in 2022, or, like somebody's gonna get in a car accident on this day. call them and hang out the day before and make sure they do not leave your house, because then they won't be in the car accident or something, you know? Yeah, if it's something that I could potentially prevent or fix or just make life better or easier for myself or others, yeah, I think I'd take that chance. Because, yeah, I wouldn't be able to stop, you know, like a major world event, but I could stop something that happens with my family or friends, you know? Or fix it, rather. I doesn't necessarily have to stop something. 6. Oh, excuse me. If you could tell your past self one thing, what would it be? You're not going to find your guy in college. Don't be upset about it. All the guys you meet in college are going to be douchebags, so... no, I wouldn't need to tell her that. I know I was sad that I never found anybody in college, but I don't think it was a major issue for me. I don't know. If you could tell your past self one thing, what would it be? I go back to this all the time. Don't shave your arms. Girl, you have way too many freckles and moles to do that crap. Stop it. 7. If you could ask one question to an all-knowing being, what would it be? What is the most important event in human history and why? Because it'd be interesting to know if it's something that's already happened or something that will happen. Because I assume from what they tell me, I'll be able to know, like, yes, this was World War II, or that was World War I, you know, stuff like that. I assume something that would have that big of an impact on humanity would be memorable. But heck, for all I know, it's just going to be, yeah, when the first fish crawled on land. 8. What do you think happens after death? I believe in an afterlife. I definitely believe in heaven. I don't know if I really... What is it? Is it purgatory? The idea that that's kind of just, like, between heaven and hell. Like, oh, the people who weren't very religious and the people who believe the wrong religion and whatnot. I don't believe in that. I think that's bullcrap. I don't know if I necessarily believe in hell, though. Like... Because there are so many people that if you research them, you know, like serial killers included, a lot of them had horrific childhoods. And yeah, maybe that's not an excuse, but there's a reason, you know, like there was an issue. Something came up with them. And they made wrong choices, but do they deserve to burn in hell? I don't know. I believe that, like, everybody will get the afterlife that they deserve. And if they were affected by an incident, you know, like if they were, like, dropped on their head or had a work accident where they hurt their head or something, that isn't the afterlife that they deserve, you know? It's not their fault. They didn't ask for that to happen to them. So, yeah, I think there's something good waiting for everybody. We'll go with that. 9. What is the most profound experience you have ever had with a stranger? Profound? You know what? I need to define profound. Because, like, I'm thinking, like, you know, like the most influential, the most... I don't know. I'm going to just define profound. I feel like, you know, like, oh, you need to talk to the Dalai Lama. He'll have some profound information for you. Yeah, very great or intense. Having or showing great knowledge or insight. The vast depth of the ocean or of the mind. Oh, I like that. Man, you guys, I worked in retail. There were more of the opposite. Unprofound experiences. Really stupid people. The most profound experience with a stranger. I have no idea. Like, nothing is coming to mind. It's like, I remember a lot of teachers, you know, blowing my mind with knowledge, but they weren't strangers. They were my teachers. So, a stranger. I don't know. I don't talk to strangers. It's dangerous. I have no idea.
And that is the end of Christmas Ornaments 2021 Sleigh, Bear and Sleigh. I don't remember what I decided on to call it. I got 2 hours and 17 minutes of footage, so it was 2 minutes more than the dog I did earlier today. There we go. So the pattern had hearts on it, and I'm planning to give this to a male coworker, so I just thought it'd be better to just not include them. It wasn't necessary. And it's pretty much the same size as the dog in the boot, so it's okay. If it was significantly smaller, I might have done like snowflakes or something, but I think it's good. So yeah, it's 3:19, so the sun's gonna be going down soon, so I think I'm gonna call it a night. Like, subscribe, share, comment, all that jazz. We'll see you guys in the next video.